One of the secrets at Barón de Ley is that our consumer is very loyal. So when you have a consumer open about the Barón de Ley Reserva, fantastic is the style of wine I like, because one of the good things about Barón de Ley Reserva is that it's the wine that is a perfect combination of fruitiness, of oak, of smoothness, elegance. So it's quite good. It has a very, very good balance. So it's the kind of wine that you can drink at any occasion with any kind of food, and you can please to a very wide range of consumers.
Welcome to Flying for Flavor. I'm your host, Stephanie Pichet, and you're listening to episode 47. And today we're talking about Rioja and the highlights of my visit to Barón de Ley. So usually I like to start the episode talking about what I'm drinking, and there should be absolutely no surprise that I have opened up one of my Barón de Ley's Reserva 2012 from my own cellar. But just so that you can drink along, I have let for you a list of 4 different Barón de Ley wines in the show notes that are available in Ontario at the LCBO that you can shop for today and that you can be starting to enjoy right away. So don't forget to check your LCBO app or their website to check which of these wines you can pick up this weekend. The wines from this area are made from a blend of grape varietals. So the most well-known ones are Tempranillo, Garnacha, or in France, you'd probably know that as Grenache, Mazuelo, and Graciano. The blend takes its name, just like any other wines in the Old World wine regions, from the name of the region where it's produced. So you'll actually see the word Rioja on the bottle, and that just signifies that the wines are coming from that one particular area. Within the Rioja, there's also 3 other subdivisions or 3 other zones. So it can actually be divided into Rioja Alta, which means the upper section, Rioja Baja, which is the lower section, and Rioja Alavesa, which is also in the upper section closer to the mountains. So as I mentioned, most of the Rioja wines are actually blends. They are starting to produce more and more single varietals, but they learned how to blend from the French in Bordeaux region, which is just north of Spain, of course. When choosing to buy a Rioja, the most important thing to know is that the wine is separated into 4 levels of classification, and it all signifies how much time they spend in oak or in bottle before it is sold to you. So you'll look for these 4 terms on the bottles when you're shopping for the wines. If it just says Rioja, this is the basic form of the wine. It's only been aged for a short time in oak, and then it's just bottled and sold. It's going to be young, it's going to be ripe. It is one of the basic varieties that you'll find considered almost a table wine in that area. The next one's called a crianza. For a wine to be labeled a crianza, it's got to spend a minimum of 1 year in oak and then another at least a few months in the bottle before it's being sold. So it's had a little bit more time to kind of settle and age, take up some of the flavors of the oak before it's sent to you. Now, the next 2 levels are Reserva and Grand Reserva, and these are 2 classifications that Barón de Ley specializes in. So Reserva, this is a Rioja made from the best grapes of the harvest, and a Reserva must be aged a minimum of 3 years. One of them has to be in oak and the rest in the bottle. So you can have any kind of combination other than that, as long as there's been at least 1 year in oak. To be labeled a Grand Reserva, it must be aged in oak for at least 2 years and then spend another 3 more years in the bottle. So a little bit about Barón de Ley. It's located in Mendavia, which is a little community located in the Navarra area, which is the eastern part of Rioja. And for those of you who happen to know the area a little bit, I would say it's about a 20-minute drive east of Logroño, which is essentially the capital city within Rioja. Now, the building where they currently have their group's corporate headquarters is actually a Benedictine monastery that was once a castle and fortress that was first constructed back in the 1500s. Can you believe it? And then it was passed and sold, of course, between families and owners. It's a stunning property. You'll see pictures on the show notes, of course. Starting in around 2000, they actually decided to make more modern versions of their wines, and they actually brought in an expert, Gonzalo Rodriguez, who has been a consultant for Barón de Ley now since 2000. I was also lucky to have a tour of the property and production facility that's been under construction for the last several weeks, and I was guided by Barón de Lei's manager, Alexander Tomé. He explained the overall philosophy of Barón de Lei, their wines, and then took me on a walking tour of their entire facility.
It was founded at the beginning of the 80s, and the idea was to start a project quite unique in Rioja because it was based on the vineyard. Those days, and even nowadays in Rioja, vineyards, they belong to the farmers, the grape growers, right? They own around 80% of the total vineyard in the DO. So the wineries, they buy the wine, so they buy the grapes, or even to the growers, or they buy the wine to the cups, to the big cups, right? And they age the wine and bottle the wine. Barón de Lei was born with the idea of a single state winery. So the founders, they bought monastery with the vineyard around. The original plantation was 90 hectares, and they built up, the winery. During the last years, we have been increasing of vineyard, the number of hectares of vineyard, and nowadays we own more than 500 hectares of vineyard, what makes us, the largest owner of vineyard in the whole Rioja region. Why the winery they do not own vineyards? Because probably they're quite expensive. They are very, very expensive. Not as expensive as they are in Champagne, but we are talking about one of the most, expensive, hectare vineyard in the whole world. So it's quite expensive. So the winery, they prefer, to buy the grapes. But we, from the very beginning, our philosophy was we want to control the quality from the very beginning, and the very beginning is the grape. Because at the end, the wine is the result of the grape. So the better the grape is, the better the wine will be. Absolutely. So we started the project to increase our vineyards. We planted Tempranillo, but we also planted Graciano, Garnacha, Maturana. In fact, nowadays we are the largest owner of Graciano, Garnacha, and Maturana in the whole Rioja denominación de origen. So we expanded our range of grapes. We also planted white Grenache. We planted new things, to make the blend of the wine different. So first pillar of Barón de Lei is the vineyard. Second pillar is the production of reservas and grandes reservas. These two wines account by 70% of our production. This is quite unique, and this is scaling in the Rioja. We are one of the very, very few wineries in Rioja who have not made a crianza.
Yes, I noticed that.
So it's quite, you are focused on reservas or a grande reservas. There was years back, there was other wineries doing only reservas and grande reservas because of the crisis. They say downgrade the range, not good to downgrade it. You understand what I mean? Downgrade, not talking about the quality. This is just about it. And they launched a crianza, but we were doing very well. We were having better results, even with the crisis. We were growing even much more than the previous years. So we continue with your philosophy. Because the number 3 of our philosophy is value for money. So it's not just about making the best possible wine, but also to make it at the best possible price. So when a consumer buys a bottle of Barón de Lei, they enjoy when they buy, when they drink, and when they pay.
Yes.
So they do it three times, which is also very important, right? Because at the end, this is okay. In the business like this, you never make money with the first bottle you sell. You make money with all the others that come after that. So we have very, very loyal clients. We also have other wines in our range that are more powerful, with more structure, and maybe some people love them, but some others say, oh, it's too heavy for me. But Barón Reserva, it reaches, a wider range of consumers. So vineyard, reservas, grande reservas, and value for money. Also in the last years, because all the plantation had made of Garnacha, Graciano, Sauvignon Blanc, Garnacha Blanca, we also have another pillar, which is the innovation. We are launching every year almost 1 or 2 new different wines, in short production, new things, interesting things that are in a very limited production, but they are quite. For example, we launched a white Grenache a couple of years ago, doing extremely well. White Grenache, the production is tiny in Rioja. Also, we launched last year a semi-sweet tomato Sauvignon Blanc, something quite unique. There's no other Sauvignon Blanc semi-sweet in Rioja, and we have also new things coming in the future. We were pioneer with the Maturana, we were pioneer with the White Reserva, so the innovation is also part of our pillar. As said, during the last years we have grown a lot in vineyard, and we needed a new winery able to to receive and to process all that vineyard, all that grapes in the right way. And also we have a winery prepared for Tempranillo, but we need a winery also prepared for Tempranillo, for Graciano, for Maturana, for different grapes, also because they require different elaborations, also for the elaboration of white and rosés, because we really believe a lot in the future of quality white and rosés. But in Spain is red production, even the Spanish consumer is open to pay a good amount of money for a red, but not for a white. So maybe only if they come from Galicia, from that corner, there's a few, Alvarinho with a good price, but most of the white in Spain and in Rioja is very entry level, right? However, we launched in 2000 with the vintage 2008, we launched a white Reserva. Price point Tres Viñas, right?
My
the price
favorites.
above the Reserva, the red Reserva. When we launched the wine, we're not sure about how the market is going to react to a white Rioja Reserva. And also at a value for money is a very good price, but it's not a cheap €2, Verdejo or Viro, right? The result is incredible, much better than expected. So it makes believe that there is a future, there's possibilities for these, top whites and even top rosés. Top rosé is not a category, only maybe in Provence, but we think that there is potential there. We have completely the elaboration building, completely new.
It's shiny new.
Stainless stick with the laser technology. Also, another point at Barón de Ley is the hand sorting of the grapes. We hand sort over 1 million kilos every year.
Wow.
And with the new plants that with the new project, we will be able to do even up to 2 millions over that, millions of hand sorting. That's a lot. That's also unique. You have many wineries doing hand sorting, but not at the scale we are doing.
Small production,
something just a few. No, we do top scale, 1 million kilos, and we will increase up to 2 million kilos in the short time.
Wow.
I will show you this building is also under construction because in Rioja, also for Barón de Ley, it's very important the production, so the vineyard, the elaboration, but also the barrel aging and the bottle aging. So we need, you will see the new barrel aging cellar, and so to expand our possibilities and our capacity, we increase our elaboration capacity, but also we have our barrel aging and bottle aging. So far we have one building for the bottle aging and one building for the barrel aging, and now we have built up a new building for the barrel aging with a capacity up to 40,000 barrels.
Wow.
And bottle aging, which is so very important because we keep our wines for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years before we release them into the market to make them rounder. So we don't say buy now, drink it in 2 years. We say buy now, drink it now, right? So, no, that's a drink. Because in this case it happens that you buy a wine and the guy who sells you the wine say, "Oh, it will be fantastic in 2 years." Okay, but I want to drink it. I mean, pay now. No, it's like it doesn't happen in any other business I can remember. I mean, if you buy a house, you
live in it now.
If you buy a car, you drive the same day. If you buy whatever you do, you think no. Now it's this. No, in the wine it happens to say, okay, this wine is fantastic, but it will be better even in 2 years. You say, okay, I'll be back in 2 years. No, we sell the wine when it is ready. Of course, in the next years, it will mature. It will be not even better, but it will be smoother. But we keep the wine here until it's ready for consumption. So at the moment, we have a stock of around 5 million bottles that will move to 7 million bottles because the barrel will be converted also into bottle aging, right? Mm-hmm. So as you see here, there's plenty of wine.
There is plenty of wine.
And this one is here, laying down for year and a half, 2 years, depending on the wine.
That's right. So it's 2 years usually for Reserva.
Yeah.
Just for the listeners, and then 3 years is for your Grand Reserva.
Yes, and the Reserva we do possibly around a year and a half, 18, 20 months, and the Grand Reserva we do 3 years or more. So the wine gets rounder because the wine has been in barrel for a year and a half or 2 years, years and a half, depending on the wine. And it's important that the fruit coming from the primary aromas, the secondary aromas, all the flavors they combine. The barrel with the grape. Also the tertiary aroma, the touch of also the elegance, the roundness of the tannins is very important that they merge, and that's why important the bottle aging.
I've never gotten run over by a truck of wine before.
Okay, bueno. It's probably I would say for a wine lover, it's an interesting wine of passing away, right?
That's right. So you're using some American oak for certain wines, I'm guessing, but probably more French oak?
No, more American.
Yes?
The Tempranillo compacts perfectly with the American. Also, the Rioja consumer, the Spanish consumer, and the Rioja consumer, they say the Spanish consumer and the Rioja lover is more into the Tempranillo style for the Reservas or for the Grande Reserva. The French may too. I'm not going to say aggressive, maybe to make the wine too strong, it's more not full body but more intense, let's say. Okay. They love the more smooth, vanilla, less spicy and more cocoa, vanilla, tobacco style that is given by the American.
Do you find there's a difference? I don't know about the market. So here in Spain versus North America, do you find that in North America they're liking a certain style of Rioja?
Yeah, absolutely. But not the Rioja. The consumer is different. Yes. The consumer is different. What makes it that in some markets your wine do better because it's more into the style. But you cannot change your style depending on the market.
No, that's good to hear.
That's my style. In some markets, I will reach 90% of the population. In other markets, I will reach around 10-15% of the population. But also, it's something that you know very well that the market is ups and downs in the trend, right? So you cannot be, trying to every time to be trendy. That's not impossible. So you say, okay, this is my style. Hope you like it. If you don't, it's pretty. It's true that in our market we have, in our range we have different wines. We have a wide range of wines. So you can find from strong, powerful, intense wines to more, elegant, fine, delicate wine, right? So we have wine for, but we are talking about the Reserva. We have wine style, which is quite modern for the Rioja Reservas, but of course it's nothing to do with Merlot from Australia. Nothing to do. It's completely different style. Yes. Absolutely, because we know our style, no? Some people is looking for the local food culture. Mm-hmm. but you also have more and more people who is eating the same all around the world, eating the same and drinking the same all around the world. So these global brands, they make a very, strong decision. Okay, we say, no, this is what we do, this is what we do with our vineyard, this is what we do with our way of making wine.
Yes, because there's some wineries that we visited around the world who specifically make specific blends or styles strictly for export.
Yeah.
Right? So they make a wine that somebody in the United States would appreciate more than they don't even sell it at home because it's not not a wine for the locals.
We do orange, all the Rondelet, and some wines are more powerful, more intense because of the blend of the age and the biot and others, but we sell them everywhere. In some markets, some are more successful than others, but we do not make tailor-made wines.
It's true Spanish wine. Now, in my opinion, Rioja wines pretty much go with anything, but I happen to like them with savory flavors like meats and cheeses, just to stand up to the strength of the wine, similar to what I would do with a Bordeaux. Now, I'm going to give you some of my favorite food pairings because I'm sure that you're all wondering, well, if I go and get that bottles that you suggested, what should I have it with tonight? So here's just a few ideas of what I happen to enjoy with each of the different classifications of Rioja. So for those very young ones, the ones that just say Rioja on the bottle, if it happens to be a cool and rainy night, I would say a bowl of chili would be great with that. A very simple grilled steak is always good. And then if you're going to have some comfort food, just a pasta bolognese would actually be something that I would kind of gravitate towards. I think that it would sort of balance out the meat in the sauce very well. Now, when it comes to crianza, I find it's a little bit on the jammy side, meaning that it's the sweetness of the fruit really comes out well in a crianza. So I like to pair it with something that's got a little bit of a kick to it. And of course, one of my favorite pairings with that is, of course, a cheese board with the classic manchego cheese. And then for the reservas, because they tend to have a little bit more flavors like chocolate and spice, the Spanish like to call it a balsamic flavor, things like fennel and licorice. I think I need something stronger and a little bit more balance, similar in flavor and weight to what a reserva would be. So I'm thinking of a classic paella would be good with this. I love a chorizo sausage with a reserva, and then even something like a gamey roast lamb is actually beautiful with a classic reserva. Now for the Grand Reserva, because it's had a little bit more time in the oak, it's got some subtle spice, soft fruit. So just think of all the berries, flavor, touch of cinnamon, and then all of those old world flavors that you would come to expect from an old world wine, like the cigar box and leather, mushrooms. So of course, mushrooms again would be a good pairing with that. So anything that's very mushroom heavy, especially like one of those big meaty mushrooms. Stews, slow cooked stews are really beautiful with this. And then one of my favorites is a classic duck confit because that richness of that duck really goes well with that Grand Reserva. So let's get back to the tour. So after my tour with Alexander, I had a chance to sit and taste some wines and have a good conversation with Maite Calvo de la Banda. She is the technical director at Barón. And of course, as I mentioned previously, their legendary consulting winemaker, Gonzalo Rodriguez. I had a chance to taste the best of their current wine releases and learn from them directly on how they make these spectacular wines consistently and always to rave reviews.
This is the other wine. And see here at Barón we have developed 4 kinds of wines, 4 different wines. We have the young wine, the white reserva, and in the middle of both we have a semi-sweet and a single varietal of white Grenache. 100% white.
That's new.
That's new, yeah, it's a new project. We started with the white Grenache last vintage 2016, and we made few bottles, last 2,000 bottles, and we launched to the market, I think, in October, and in November disappeared. So all the person who love the white Grenache So this latest vintage 2017 we started again the project and make a little bit more
It was
quantity.
small. Yeah, it was small amount.
Yeah. So for the 2017 we made 6,000 bottles and
so smooth.
it works really good with the customer. And for the three vineyards we use Rioja, Malvasia and White Grenache. These are the three typical white varieties we have here in the UC Rioja. For this one we made the blend before to get into the barrels. And we use American barrel during a year, and then a year more in bottle. Yes, that's for completing the aging process. Our reserva is 100% Tempranillo. This the Tempranillo that we use for this wine is it's all the vineyard that we have surrounding the monastery. So it's the Tempranillo from this area. And this where we are now is the more Mediterranean area inside Rioja. So this area gives this kind of Tempranillo, this Tempranillo with volume, with kindness in the mouth, and has a lot of ripeness fruit, red fruit. And
Easy drinking.
It's a very easy drinking wine. You must know that we made around 3 million bottles of this wine, so we need to make a kind wine, nice wine a lot of people love, because a very important amount of their food, no? So our aim with this wine is that a lot of people love this wine.
Yes, it's a classic style of Tempranillo.
It's a classic rare.
I love the finish.
I think so. If people outside is thinking in a reopened Tempranillo, it's looking for a wine like this. And we use American oak, but the oak is in a second place in the wine. So the first impact in the nose is the fruit, it's the red fruit, and then you find the vanillas from the American oak, but overall in the palate, not in the nose. This is the Gran Reserva. For the Gran Reserva, we made a blend with the Graciano and Tempranillo. We use around 20% of Graciano for helping the Tempranillo to make a long aging, because the Graciano gives structure, gives acidity and a low pH, so helps the Tempranillo to make a long aging barrel. Because for the Gran Reserva, we put the wine in barrels for 2 years and then 3 years more in bottles. So here we have wines that is minimum 5 years old. We need good structure, good acidity for to this long process.
And so do you change the percentage of it every year? Or?
Yeah. We don't work here with recipes. We have the main ideas of the wines that we can get during the process. The main important thing that we have here is to look for the vineyard. So we start with our wines in the vineyard. So we decide at first what vineyard and what variety from what vineyard is for the future Reserva, Gran Reserva, and all this. And in the percentage, when we make the aging, all the varietals separated one from the other, and even for different vineyards, from different areas in Rioja, Rioja Alta, Rioja Baja, and so on, all of them. We make the aging, and at the end of the aging is when we decide the final value. So for the Gran Reserva, it depends on the year. One year we will add a little bit more Reserva, or another year we decide to reduce the percentage of Reserva. It's not exactly precise. We try to make the main soul every year, but we fix to the vintage.
And do you use a laboratory, meaning to analyze, or just more the taste and the feel?
First thing we do is the tasting.
Okay.
Yeah, we take the samples of all the wines we have of this vintage. Now we are working in the future Reserva 2015. So we take here all the samples of all the wines that we are aging in the barrel cellar. We taste and we decide which is the percentage on the final blend.
Nice.
And then we go to laboratory and analyze.
Okay.
But the main important thing for deciding our wines is the tasting.
Lo más importante de un técnico es la intuición.
Sí.
La intuición. Y la intuición se ejercita si catas mucho.
Yeah, you should practice the tasting exercise every year.
So the wines that I tasted that day were the White Reserva, the Tres Viñas, which is their Blanco Reserva, which means that their white blended wine was actually aged in American oak for 12 months and then spent another year in the bottle before it was actually sold. It's something unique to that winery, and it's unique to that region, and it's one of the most spectacular whites I think I've ever had in Spain. Unfortunately, it's not available here in Ontario as of yet, but if I do find it, I will let you know. So the other ones that I did try were the classic Rioja White, the Reserva, the Gran Reserva, the Finca Monasterio, and then I actually got to try their new Rosado. One of their most special wines that I tasted and is now available here at the LCBO is called Finca Monasterio. So for those of you who like the big, deep, and dark wines, this is one for you. It was actually made with the grapes from the very first vineyard at the monastery. And one of those grape varietals, believe it or not, was Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, Cabernet is not one of the classic allowed grape varietals in Rioja blends, but Barón de Ley actually received special permission to make sure that they could be using the grapes from this monastery. And the deal was they just could not label the wines to say that they had Cabernet in them. So that's your little behind the scenes tip. There's actually a bit of Cabernet in that blend. So there are many other varieties that they are working on, including those single varietals, new ones that they've planted. They now have 2 different Rosados, if you happen to be a big rosé fan. And they also have their 7 Viñas, which is their Tinto Reserva, which is actually made from all 7 grape varieties that, believe it or not, grow side by side in one single vineyard, which is very cool. I will leave the link to the winery's website, and you'll be able to see all the different wines that they're producing and a little bit on the tasting notes on that if you want to research a little bit more. So I hope you enjoyed this special episode. Muchas gracias to Alexander, Maite, and Gonzalo for an amazing visit and tasting. And of course to my husband Norm for interrupting his own tasting that he was so excited for, just so he could take some photos of our day there so we could share them with you. So if you have not tried Barón de Ley before, please pick one up and let us know what you think. If you are already a fan of Barón de Ley, and you should be, let me know which one your favorite is. I'm going to keep in touch with the winery, and I'm going to let them know your feedback, and I will keep in touch with you about which wines are being released and when, so that you can always make sure that you have Barón de Ley in your cellar. So I'll meet you back here next week. Make sure to subscribe and rate us on all the podcast players and apps, or flyingforflavor.ca. Salud!